Let's rewind the clock a few years to set the stage. The year is 2020, and Paige Bueckers is the name on everyone's lips. A young phenom from Minnesota who's ready to take the women's basketball world by storm. She's got it all: shooting, finishing, ball handling, passing, defending, you name it. There's nothing Paige can't do on the court. And for a storied program like UConn women's basketball, led by the legendary Gino Auriemma, Paige is the perfect prospect to continue their reign of dominance in college basketball. Right out of the gate, Paige burst onto the scene and immediately established herself as one of the best players in college basketball as a freshman. She racked up numerous awards, including the prestigious National Player of the Year award, while leading UConn to the Final Four. But then, the following season, everything began to unravel. Paige suffered a significant injury, a moment that not only impacted her career, but also shifted the women's basketball landscape. While Paige was sidelined over the next few seasons, another superstar emerged, Caitlin Clark. Clark stormed into the scene, capturing the basketball world's attention. Many speculate that if Paige hadn't been injured, Clark might have remained in the shadows. Is there any truth to that? It's hard to say. What we do know is this: with Clark now in the WNBA, it's the perfect time for Paige to reassert her dominance and remind everyone why she was once the most coveted player in the game. But to do that, she can't just go about business as usual or rely on her natural talent. She's got to reach some key milestones to reclaim her place at the top. Let's dig a little deeper into what makes Paige so special. What sets her apart as the most coveted player in America was her versatility and all-around game. Paige can be used in multiple ways, both on and off the ball. Her ability to read screens and play off counters makes her nearly impossible to guard. In the mid-range, she's what we call a phone booth scorer, someone who can score in tight spaces and get her shot off with lightning speed. This puts immense pressure on defenders, often leading to overreactions that Paige exploits with backdoor cuts and finishes around the rim. Her skill set, combined with her defensive capabilities and ability to elevate her teammates, is what had her ranked as the number one player in the nation. Don't want to rehash too much, but that is how, even when UConn faced numerous injuries to key players like Caroline Ducharme and Aubrey Griffin, Paige's leadership and skill kept them competitive, as well as Aaliyah Edwards, who now plays with the Washington Mystics, taking them all the way to the Final Four, yet again. And though injuries sidelined her for much of the next two seasons, her brief comeback helped lead UConn to the title game. Although they fell short against Aaliyah Boston and South Carolina, despite these setbacks, Paige remains a beacon of hope for UConn and a symbol of perseverance in the sport. Now let's talk about the Paige Bueckers and Caitlin Clark dynamic. A sort of frenemy situation where respect and rivalry go hand in hand. Initially, Paige was the one getting all of the buzz as a transcendent talent, while Caitlin Clark was right there in the mix, but largely overlooked. In the 2020 graduating class, Paige was ranked the number one prospect, with Caitlin sitting at around number 4. During their freshman seasons, Paige averaged 20 points and 6 assists on 63% true shooting, while Caitlin put up an incredible 27.6 rebounds and 7 assists on 62% true shooting. Despite similar numbers, the attention was on Paige, partly because of UConn's team success overshadowed Iowa's. So as far as who was the better player or who deserved the hype at that point, it's kind of a toss-up because the numbers were comparable, but they both were playing with different circumstances. In college basketball, there's no salary cap, there are no trades or free agency, so the way teams are built can sort of be unfair as long as you have a coaching staff that are great at recruiting the best players coming out of high school or out of the transfer portal. A storied program like UConn would have the obvious advantage over a school like Iowa in this regard. To continue, the Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers dynamic go even far beyond this because they both are Midwesterners, they played on USA teams together and won gold medals. Another interesting component was that Caitlin Clark actually wanted to go to UConn, and Gino Auriemma wasn't really interested because he already had his lead guard in Paige Bueckers. Now you can question whether that was the right decision because we've seen him pair two lead guards together before with Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi, but nonetheless, he had his player. But what was clear is that Gino didn't and kind of still don't view Caitlin as his type of player, a UConn type of player. As even today, he has been critical of Caitlin's game.
If you're a college player and you're a great college player, like Caitlin was, the delusional fan base that follows her disrespected the WNBA players by saying she's going to go in that league and tear it apart. There were actually odds on she's third or fourth in betting odds on being MVP of the WNBA. These people are so disrespectful and so unknowledgeable and so stupid that it gives women's basketball a bad name. Okay, so the kid was set up for failure right from the beginning. So if you're a WNBA player, and believe me, I've coached the best, and I've pissed them off a lot, and they let me know about it. But they were tremendously disrespected. And none of them are going to say it. But human nature is, okay, this kid's coming into the league. And Diana said it best. This kid's in for a rude awakening. And they all jumped over her, but they didn't read the whole thing that she said. But nobody's printing. Diana Taurasi was right. This kid's on the wrong team. She's got the wrong skill set to handle the physicality of that league. And she's a rookie. And if you're a WNBA player, if you're any kind of player, you're going to say, I'm going to make a statement. Targeted by society, targeted by her looks, targeted by her reputation, targeted by the disrespect that they've shown to the WNBA. There's a huge target on this kid's back. I thought Cameron Brink said something really smart. She said, no, they're expecting this rookie class to be perfect. This rookie class isn't even one of the best rookie classes in the last 10 years. But they've been put out to be that because the way social media is today. So what kind of impact is this rookie class having in the WNBA?
How do you think Clark is handling this?
I think she's handling great. I think she talks a lot of and she gets a lot of back. So she deserves everything she gets because she gives it as good as she gets it. She's just not built for the physicality of this league. Yeah, and she's not quick enough to get away from the physicality. So there's a lot of learning curve, like Diana said. And when she gets it, she has elite skills that are going to really help her. Yeah, but she needs to be on a better team, and she needs to be more experienced, and that will come. But for these ridiculous fans who had her slotted as the next Diana now, they're out of their mind.
Also, I don't know if Caitlin would still go to UConn because she likely would have been held back in a lot of regards of truly reaching her potential. That is what a lot of players have to deal with when deciding to go to powerhouse programs like the UConns and the South Carolinas of the world. This honestly is why a lot of players in that regard fail to build huge national followings when playing for these teams, because you are kind of held back in certain regards. Although you will pick up a lot of the college's fan base who are pretty big in their own right, but mainstream and national love will probably never have it. So as Paige dealt with injuries, Caitlin Clark's star began to rise. She benefited from the freedom to play her game at Iowa, a freedom that players at powerhouse programs often don't have. Caitlin's ability to lead Iowa to back-to-back national title games and her undeniable skill set propelled her into the national spotlight. She became a rock star in the sport, breaking viewership records and drawing sellout crowds. The tide certainly shifted between where Paige Bueckers started and where Caitlin Clark ended as far as the college realm is concerned. With Caitlin Clark's rise, it has ruffled its fair share of feathers because a lot of people felt as though the coverage around her has been too much, which some people view as taking shine away from other players. When Paige still had that type of attention, this is something that she tried to prevent, or you could say fight back against, especially concerning the social implications behind the coverage. But all in all, now as Caitlin Clark is nearing her end of playing basketball for nearly a year straight, she will finally find herself out of the spotlight at least into the next season. Could this be the perfect time for Paige to remind everyone exactly who she is? A lot of people still feel like she is the better player between her and Caitlin Clark. And going into next year's draft, teams are vying for power in terms of just the amount of young talent in the league and trying to determine who is going to be that next dominant powerhouse, or will it be more parity where one team doesn't dominate the other? Regardless, you need dogs that are at the top of the chopping block in order to compete and contend with the likes of the New York Liberty, the Las Vegas Aces, and the Minnesota Lynx. With Clark now in the WNBA, Paige has the perfect opportunity to reassert her dominance and reclaim her narrative. For Paige, returning to UConn for her 5th season was a strategic decision. She missed a lot of time due to injuries, and she's determined not to be the one 5-star recruit who couldn't deliver at least one championship to a program like UConn. Failure to win a championship could not only tarnish her legacy, but also impact the future perception of UConn's program. It not only looks bad on her as a player, but also on the program, as things like this can impact the future of the program, and people start to view them as a thing of the past, sort of like what happened with USC and Tennessee. back in the day. Although with the emergence of Juju Watkins, USC is definitely trying to resurrect their status in the college basketball world. Regardless, I believe that Paige has it in her to really reinstate that dominance and rise back to where people are calling her the best young player that you would want to build a WNBA team around. But she is going to have to set her sights on doing a lot of unbelievable feats to build that respect and excitement back up. But Paige isn't just focused on winning a college championship, she's also setting her sights on matching and surpassing Caitlin Clark's rookie season in the WNBA starting next season. For Paige to reclaim the throne, I'm looking at a few things that she must do in order to reclaim that status. Number one is win a college championship. Obviously, she must lead UConn to a championship in her final season. Anything less would be seen as a failure, especially given her decision to return for a fifth year. Number two, rival Caitlin Clark's WNBA production. Paige needs to prove she can match or exceed Caitlin Clark's rookie year production in the WNBA. This is crucial for establishing herself as the premier talent from their class. And obviously, Caitlin Clark's having a historic season, but it still can be matched. Obviously, in efficiency, obviously, less turnovers, higher scoring, better defense, things like that. So there's still something that she can do to really close that gap. And then lastly, the third is win the head-to-head matchup when she actually plays Caitlin Clark. When Paige and Caitlin face off for the first time in the WNBA, Paige needs to bring her A game. Their first professional matchup will be highly anticipated, and it's an opportunity for Paige to set the tone for future battles and reclaim the title of the best young player to build around in the WNBA. In this game of fame and attention, it's all about moments and reminding the world who you are. Paige Bueckers has the chance to write her own comeback story, a tale of redemption that could see her reclaim her status as the top player in women's basketball. Will she seize the moment? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain, Paige Bueckers is ready to remind the world exactly who she is.